For those who have had spoiled siblings, when did your parents realize they had made a big mistake? Growing up, my brother was always the center of attention in our family. He's 6 years younger than me, and ever since he was diagnosed with high-functioning autism at the age of 4, my parents coddled him excessively. While he appeared normal in most aspects, he was unbelievably spoiled. He used his privileged position to get his way nearly all the time. Whatever I had, he had to have too, which led to us having duplicates of almost everything. The few things I didn't have, he would rub in my face whenever he could. When I was 11, I begged my parents for a 3DS for my 12th birthday. I was thrilled when they got it for me, but the joy was short-lived. I was instructed to lend it to my brother whenever he wanted it, or else they would take it away from me. He wanted it often. One day, my aunt visited and witnessed my parents forcibly taking my 3DS out of my hands to give it to my brother. She exploded in anger at them for their blatant favoritism. They returned my 3DS immediately, but blamed me for the situation once my aunt left. Although they didn't make me give it to my brother again, a few days later they bought another 3DS as a surprise gift for him. My brother's tantrums were infamous, especially on birthdays. He couldn't stand the fact that the party wasn't entirely about him. He would get upset if he didn't receive any gifts or wasn't allowed to blow out the candles on the cake. My parents learned the hard way that they couldn't enable his behavior at these parties, and they were even kicked out of a few for trying. As a result, other kids at school stopped inviting him to their birthday parties altogether. For me, my birthdays were the only days where I could have the focus on myself. Otherwise, my life revolved around my little brother. The year before the incident that changed everything, my parents paid more attention to him throughout my entire 13th birthday. They even asked me if I would let my brother blow out my candles because he was upset and pouting. I refused, wanting to blow out my own candles. They called me a spoiled brat until my aunt intervened again, chastising them for their favoritism. She pointed out how my brother got nearly everything between the two of us just because he was autistic. No one supported my parents' stance except my brother, who was still crying because he didn't get his way. In a fit of spite, he even tried to spit on my cake. Fortunately, my awesome aunt blocked my brother before he could ruin my cake, scolding him until he ran to my mom in tears. The other adults criticized my parents, and they promised never to ask me to let my brother blow out my candles again. For the rest of the party, they just went through the motions, while my aunt pretty much took over coordinating everything. A couple of weeks before my birthday the following year, my parents sat me down and informed me that although they would get me some gifts and a small cake, my birthday party was effectively canceled to avoid my brother having another meltdown. I couldn't believe they were doing this to me, but they just shrugged it off without a care. Over the next week, I told my friends, teachers, and even my school counselor about the situation. They were all appalled by my parents' lack of consideration or empathy. Even the vice principal found out and consoled me through social media. When my parents learned about this, they grounded and gaslighted me for telling so many people. But that didn't stop me. I continued telling everyone at school that I was grounded for being upset. This worsened the situation because several parents contacted mine, essentially asking, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Suddenly, I was ungrounded, but there was no apology. My dad simply walked into my room with his arms crossed, informed me I was ungrounded, and then walked out. That was it. I assumed my party was still canceled because nobody said anything about it. My brother found it hilarious and taunted me about not getting to celebrate. However, by the end of the 2 weeks, my parents surprised me with a party at my favorite restaurant. They claimed that the surprise party was their intention all along, but I knew it wasn't true. Everyone was incredibly unhappy with my parents for canceling my party, and it showed in their interactions with them. The surprise party was clearly an attempt to salvage what little of their reputations they had left. I'm pretty sure they had to spend a significant amount of money just to accommodate me that day. Dinner with my friends at my favorite restaurant, which had a small arcade, was fantastic. I even received the PS4 gaming system I had been yearning for. It was obvious everything was planned and bought last minute. My dad had a look about him that my aunt comically described as looking like a moth had flown out of his wallet. Of course, my brother made a huge fuss about me getting the surprise party, but with so many of my friends and their parents present, my mom and dad finally put their feet down. They stopped his tantrum when he wanted to push my cake off the table. For the first time since he was a toddler, my brother received a timeout, and my mom had to stay with him to ensure he didn't do anything crazy. He tried several times to run toward the cake with a stack of presents, but there was always at least one adult on guard. Even my dad stood watch to keep him away. Eventually, my mom had to take my little brother to a nearby McDonald's so he could play in their play area. I later heard that she spent at least an hour trying to get him out of the play structure. He only came out because he needed to use the bathroom, and then he tried to run right back in again. While I still lived with them, my parents never attempted to cancel my birthday again. However, they never put in as much effort or spent as much money for the remaining 4 years I was under their roof. After the big surprise party, my birthdays became more low-key affairs. They consisted of a local pizza parlor, a plain cake without my name on it, and no gifts. I don't mean to sound spoiled, but I was somewhat disappointed that I never received a cake with my name on it again. Each year, my aunt called my parents out on it, and each year they claimed they had forgotten to get the cake decorated. I suspect the reason my name was never written on another cake was that my brother always refused to eat pieces of cake with someone else's name on it at any party. They couldn't put his name on my cakes either, as it would have looked very bad for them. Despite this, the fact that I still had a day solely about me and not my brother was fantastic, especially considering that everything else revolved around him. During each of my remaining birthday parties while I still lived at home, my brother would create a fuss, and my mom would take him somewhere else to calm him down. I was still required to share my PS4 with him, but it was still mine, and I took it with me when I moved out at 18. My little brother did not appreciate that and threw a huge fit until my parents went out and bought another PS4 for him. When I moved out, my parents finally had to confront the consequences of raising my brother to be so spoiled because I wasn't there to assist them with him anymore. On his recent 14th birthday, he went into a rage at our parents for not getting him a PS5. He is now grounded after causing hundreds, maybe even thousands, in collateral damage during his rampage. He picked up a chair and started smashing anything in front of him with it. When I last saw my parents, they appeared mentally checked out. My aunt also informed me that they confided in her about how they wish they could send my brother to a military or boarding school because they can no longer handle the monster they created. However, they are unable to afford such an option. I would be lying if I said I didn't find it ironically funny.